You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And we are back with Lisa Lain in the studio. She comes each week. We just give this segment to her so she can impart some, a different voice, a prettier voice, brighter voice, smarter voice in the garden advice. It's just not me droning on and on for the whole show. So plus I like hanging out with you. Plus, I like hanging out with my gal in a small studio. It's just like special.
It is.
Really?
Sure.
What do you like most about it?
I knew. I was like, this won't end here. I know that.
Welcome to the studio again this week.
Thank you. We're finally getting some colder weather. We had a beautiful fall. I know it's not winter yet, but it was just gorgeous. But it's nice to have the change in seasons.
Very much.
I like that.
Yep. So I've started. It finally got cold enough. I think the bugs. I've seen a couple box elder bugs. Haven't seen anything else really out there. I think they're kind of trying to survive from the cold. So I think it's safe to go out and start cleaning, pruning, changing, grooming. If you feel like you want to go outside and prune, go ahead. I think we're safe enough, at least at the higher elevations. Actually, that's past Black Canyon City. Go for it. Cottonwood, go for it. Sedona, go for it. Paulden, Skull Valley, you're all good. Go for it. It's cold enough. Really, we wait until the cold takes out all the insect stuff. The trees, the sap will slow down. And so when you make a cut, they don't bleed. They don't attract bugs. You have less issues. So we kind of start in December, the new year, somewhere in there. And then you got until March to really clean things up. So
get started.
Yeah. Well, yeah, something.
I'm talking to people, not you.
Yeah.
I know you already did. But with this cooler weather, and now it's like officially December.
Yes.
It's time to start thinking Christmas and Christmas decorations. And
the music, the crew they were anxious. They really wanted to put Christmas music on at the store. Like, let's wait till after Thanksgiving. They couldn't stand it. They flipped it on like the few days before Thanksgiving because they're ready for it to happen.
They are. And then the week before Christmas, they'll be going, I'm tired.
Can't we have a different station? Going, I programmed 7 of them. You've got 7 different stations.
And there's so much Christmas music out there now. It's kind of crazy. But with Christmas comes the plants of Christmas. So we mainly think of poinsettias and Christmas cactus, amaryllis, paper whites, those kind of things for indoors. Because in our environment, they are definitely indoor plants.
Yeah.
This is not Southern Cal or Phoenix or where you can put those things outside. So poinsettia, I'm going to show the Christmas cactus first. I was trying to find one in bloom. We've sold so many.
As soon as they bloom,
so I brought this one because they had one bloom that was ready to go. But that's great because you're going to get to be able to enjoy all these blooms at your house instead of here. So Christmas cactus bloom for an incredibly long period of time.
This is truly where it pays to be tuned in through Spotify or Apple because they're doing the video version of this. Everyone else, you get the MP3 or the audio piece. We're trying to describe it over the airwaves so you can visualize a Christmas cactus. Is it truly a cactus?
It is not.
Yeah. What is it? Why do they call it a Christmas cactus?
That's a good question. I'll research that for next week.
There we go. Love it.
But it's not a true cactus. It's like a slumbergia.
I think of it as a succulent. So it doesn't have thorns. It's soft.
No, it's soft.
The leaves have it's just like a succulent. So
And the other one is poinsettias, of course.
Yay! Boy, you brought an exotic one. My goodness.
This one I think is the crystal ice or ice crystal one. It's has a red on the outside, white on the inside. So it's a variegated blossom. This one's coming home to our house.
Yay!
Because I just love the colors on it. I think it's very different. It's nice and light, but the traditional red, but they come up with so many colors now, variation.
It's so fun playing with cameras.
It's so fun. But have you ever wondered why? Why do we use poinsettias at Christmas?
I would really like to know why we use poinsettias during the holidays.
So the legend it's It's a Mexican legend because
Oh,
that's where these are
gotta
from,
love our
Central
Hispanic
America,
roots. Right on.
Southern, yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a little girl named Pepita.
Yeah.
They were going to church for the Christmas Eve, nativity scenes, the festivities, that kind of stuff. And she didn't have a gift to bring the baby Jesus. So she was very upset that she didn't have a gift. And her cousin said, baby Jesus doesn't care. He just wants you there to enjoy and be happy. But she was very sad. So on the way to the festival, she picked some weeds and she laid them at the nativity in front of the baby Jesus.
That is very
cool. And then
cool.
the miracle was that they turned bright red and beautiful.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's the Mexican part.
Yeah.
Part of why we have poinsettias. But how did they come to America?
How did they come to America?
Well, let me tell you. It was in the 1800s. Our first ambassador to Mexico, his name was Joel Robert Poinsett.
Yeah, there we go.
And he brought them back to the States, but they weren't very popular, especially for Christmas. People were, they liked it was something different. That's when, a lot of new introductions were formed because people were traveling more and bringing stuff back. And it was a cool plant to have, but it wasn't really associated with Christmas until, you know who Paul Ecke is?
Oh, yeah.
So Ecke poinsettias, Paul Ecke and that family.
I've met Paul before. He's passed, but his family's now taken it over.
Right.
But I've met Paul personally. He's introduced
most
of the poinsettias we know today.
Right. So he was big into poinsettias, right? So he came, this is something you would come up with. He came up with the idea, how do you make them popular, right? So he took them to all the TV studio stations throughout the country, donated to them to like the Tonight Show.
Oh, yeah.
Bob Hope Christmas specials. So he just kept pushing all these free poinsettias.
Yeah.
Like, here, take the poinsettias. They're free. So people started associating them with Christmas because that's when they would always show up, is at the holidays. And that's how they just kind of started becoming part of our Christmas traditions, is to have the poinsettia.
The Ecke family is very famous.
Yes, they are.
In the plant world. If you're a plant botanist at all, they're the ones.
Mm-hmm.
And their family's now taking it over. But Paul, that would have been the 70s, 80s, I would think. That's about the time frame. Late 60s.
Late 60s.
Yeah, that's when his peak
started.
time.
It took a while to build that up, where people were like, oh yeah, poinsettias.
Yeah.
And of course, the first ones were always the red.
Yeah.
Traditional, but now they come in white. They come in the crystal ice, like I showed you. They have one called Country Quilt, which is red with white blotches on it. There's a burgundy one, which is a really dark red. There's pinks, you name it. But if you see a blue one, it's been painted.
I know, that's just
it's
so wrong.
Not real. Drives me nuts when I see that.
Or I saw multicolored. I was at a box store.
We were at HEB in Texas.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not real.
They just take paint and they just paint it. That's all they did.
Use florist paint on
now,
it.
how often should you water? How are you going to take this one home? How are you going to care for that in your house? How do you water especially if it's got a sleeve on it, a decorative sleeve that maybe doesn't breathe?
What I usually do is poke holes in the sleeves because I do want it to breathe, but I make sure I put a saucer under it because I don't want to ruin my wooden furniture that I'm setting it on. I usually water about once a week.
Okay.
It's going to depend a little bit on your home. They're grown in very peat mossy kind of soil, so it can dry out quickly, especially if your home is warm.
Yeah.
So, but usually once a week, and when you water it, you want to use warm or tepid water. Don't go throwing cold water on it.
They don't like cold. Any cold air, cold water. They don't like cold.
Not be happy with that.
Yeah, I like warm.
A bright room, but no sun directly on it, or you will get some burning on the leaves.
Yeah.
But actually very easy to take care of. And a lot of people, I'm not one of those, but they actually like to keep them from year to year, which I think is crazy because there is a time when they start looking ugly.
Yeah.
And
there's an ugly phase to poinsettias.
It's not like we can grow them outside here, so there's really no point in keeping them. But I do toss mine soon after Christmas, but they stay lovely well past Christmas if you want to keep it going. Main thing is don't over water them. They don't like that. Yeah. And then use that warm water. Very important.
That's where that sleeve can sometimes be a detriment. It's pretty, it's decorative, it's holiday-ish. Usually I'll have a matching foiled sleeve, but then it doesn't breathe. Then you water it and then it sits there in water, and the things.
I usually pull it out of the sleeve to water
good.
it as well, and just kind of do it in the sink. And then the other thing is, don't put it by your front door because it won't be happy there.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Poinsettias, Christmas cactus, and other holiday plants, and the history behind them. Thank you for sharing that. Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners. Be right back after this.
Your yard will turn heads with stunning evergreen shrubs from Waters Garden Center.
Waters grows greener shrubs for year-round interest, as well as blooming shrubs for pops of color in spring.
Attract birds with a tall privacy hedge and the berries that follow.
Plus, winter evergreens are easier to grow than other plants.
No matter your landscape, we have the perfect shrubs for a greener winter.
Visit Waters Garden Center in Prescott or online at watersgardencenter.com.
You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Look for more tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts through Ken's website. Additional shows of this podcast, read his weekly garden column, or follow him on Facebook, Instagram at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com.